Hey guys, what's up? It's me. This time I'm not in a basement, so yeah, I can say I'm officially not a creepy stalker in a basement. So yeah, last this weekend I went to my locals. I ended up picking up three Bujin Yamatos. So I was like, hey, what the hell? Let's put the deck together, and it actually runs pretty good. So that's what this video is all about, is my Bujin deck profile. If you definitely can tell by the name if you're reading about it. So yeah, the deck, I'd have to say it's a lot slower than some of the best decks in the meta right now, but it has a lot of good qualities. There's only a couple things I can really complain about it. So yeah, here is the Bujin deck profile. So to start the lineup off, the thing that you need for any Bujin deck is triple Bujin Yamato. This guy is quite literally the man of the deck. He is your only Bujin Beast Warrior type monster. Um, Big thing is that is most of the other Bujin's effects revolve around a Bujin Beast Warrior type. So he's the only one you have that you can main deck. His effect is once during the end phase of your turn, you can search one Bujin monster from your deck and add it to your hand, and then you have to discard one Bujin monster. So it's really solid. It's pretty much like Dragoonity Knight Gaiderg. You search, then drop. So you fill up on your graveyard presence, and in this deck, that actually helps out a lot. Next is triple Bujingi Crane. It's just like Honest. It resolves in hand during the battle phase when a Bujin Beast Warrior monster you control is attacked or attacks. You can drop this card, it doubles its attack points, so pretty much you drop it, so Yamato goes up to a 3600 beater. He's really good, and since all the monsters in this deck are light, you also run Honest, so this deck you have four potential Honests in play, so lots of people have been hesitant to attack my monsters a lot of the time. Next up is double Bujingi Turtle. Turtle is kind of like your I want to say he's just your protector. He's like a shield. Pretty much his effect is if a Bujin beast, actually, I want to say if a Bujin monster you control is targeted, it doesn't have to be a beast warrior. You can banish him from your graveyard and negate the effect that targets them. So it's pretty good. Like a lot of people try using Valor to stop Yamato, or they try using it to stop the XYZ Susanoo, which I'll show you later. It's a really good card. I only run it at 2 because 3 is a little bit cloggy and just want to keep monsters low for consistency. Next up is one Bujingi Ophiden. Right now, he's only in here because he's a Bujin monster. He's got a pretty decent effect. You can discard him to target one Bujin monster you control. It can attack directly. And it's not a bad effect, just I don't think he's completely relevant to the deck, so I don't usually try going for him a lot. That's why he's only at 1. Next up is 2 Bujingi Quillin. He's your 1 pop for the deck. His effect is if you control a Bujin Beast Warrior type monster, you can banish him from your graveyard and destroy one face-up card your opponent controls. This helps out a lot. I've used this to get rid of skill drains. I've used it to get rid of prohibition. It's a good card. The only reason it's not at 3 is because it specifies face up. If it was any card on the field, he would be at 3 in a heartbeat, but since he isn't, I only like him at 2. So yeah. And then for the non-Bujin support in the deck, 2 Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Bear. Bear is kind of a self-explanatory card. He's a really good beast warrior, 1 pop on monsters. So yeah. And then like I said earlier, you have Honest because majority of almost every monster in this deck is light, and since you run triple Crane, you've got a 4 Honest threat match coming at your opponent, so I'd be kind of scared. And then next, I run 2 Effect Veiler. A lot of people are like, oh, Effect Veiler's not good this format, but honestly, Veiler in this deck is just great. It stops a lot of the monster effects that you'd have to worry about hitting Yamato, and just honestly, the whole they shouldn't this you could say this deck isn't even a Bujin deck, it's protect Yamato. That's all this deck is about. You gotta keep him or Susanoo on the field so that way all your card effects are in play and everything's alive. That is the one and only downfall that this deck has at the moment, because until Shadow Specters, we don't get another two Beast Warrior. We only get two more Beast Warriors in that, and that'll help solve a lot of the problems with the deck. But right now, since you only got Yamato and Susano, it's kind of a little bit iffy. But that is it for my monster lineup. I believe that's at 16. Now my next card, it's the only Bujin spell card I run. I run one Bujin Carnation. This card is really good. What it does is, for those of you who don't know, you target one banished Bujin monster and one Bujin monster in your graveyard. You can special summon them both to your side of the field. You can only use them for the Exi of a Beast Warrior type monster. And it's a really good card. The only reason I only run it at one is because you're not always guaranteed to have a banished Bujin. And a lot of the time, it's like, unless you pretty much, in order for any of them to be banished, you have to have Yamato. And if you don't have Yamato, this card is pretty much just like a giant hand clog until you get him. And even then, you're pretty much relying that they'll have a face-up card to banish for Quillen, or that they'll have a card effect that targets one of your guys with Turtle. So it's a good card. Somebody, if anyone wants to make an argument with me that it's worth running at more than one at the moment, go ahead. But right now, I strongly feel one is all that's necessary. And so then next up is Double Fire Formation Tenki. I only run two of this card just simply to the fact that there's only 5 Beast Warriors in the deck. And when you top into Bear, it's almost like topping into a Tenki. And there's other good spells and traps in the deck that I'd like to have in here over a third Tenki. That's just my personal preference with this deck. Usually I think Searcher should be ran at 3, but in this case there's other stuff in this deck that helps you out a lot more over Tenki. This card especially being next one. Like I said, the deck's all about protecting Yamato and Susano. So next up is Double Forbidden Lance. It stops those spells and traps that don't target, and it's also really good to chain during the battle phase. Just bop, oh, your monster loses attack points, mine survives. You can chain Crane with it, so you can do a lot more damage and go for a push for game. Next up, Trium, Heavy Storm, Dark Hole, Monster Reborn. All 3 of these cards are self-explanatory, just they're the Trium. This deck, you don't special summon a lot, so Duality, you really don't take any hits on it as far as making your plays. And it keeps your consistency live. It helps. In several times I've opened up with Duality, like 4 or 5 spells and 5 spells and traps, topped into Duality, hit Duality, and one of the 3 cards was Yamato, and my hand was great because I just had the one Yamato. Next up, I only run one MST just for that back row hate. They've got Centipede coming out next pack, which is pretty much like Quillen in the fact, except it does spells and traps. I don't know if I'm going to run them yet, but it's a thought. So that's my spell lineup. This deck is really, I wouldn't say small, yeah, it's pretty heavy on traps compared to most of the meta decks out there. I only run one of their trap card, Bujin Regalia of the Sword. Now, what this card does is you target one Bujin monster in your graveyard, return that card to your hand, or target one of your banished Bujin monsters and put it back in your graveyard. So it lets you recycle your Quillens and banished turtles, or it lets you put Crane back in hand, Bujin Yamato back in hand. So it's a good card, it's just I don't like it at more than one, is because it's really a hand clog if you don't have anything good or you don't want to put anything back. So yeah. Next up is the Solemn Duo. Both are self-explanatory cards. Really good, this format. My normal 6-star trap lineup. Double BTH. Double Compulsory Evacuation Device. And 2 Fiendish Chains. I actually picked these ones up. They're the original copies of Chain. So I thought it was really cool to get those. Next are my personal choices for this deck that I feel are really good. First one is 2 Horn of the Phantom Beast. This one's Yugi's World. It's got the silver rarity. I know that's just my personal thing because I think it's awesome. But so pretty much this card, it gives, you can target a beast or a beast warrior type monster you control. It's like a continuous trap card, except it's not continuous. Increase their attack by 800, and anytime it destroys your opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you get to draw a card. This card really combos well with Susano the XZ, and I'll go over that later. And like I said earlier, you don't special summon a lot in this deck, so I main deck 2 Vanity's Emptiness, just because this deck is really control based at the moment. You don't have all of the monsters and all of the support to go big offensive. So a lot of it is keeping Yamato and Susano on the field, protecting them as much as possible, keeping stuff off your opponent's field so you can just go for game. This card, neither player can special summon while this card is face up on the field. When one of your cards is destroyed and sent to graveyard, this card destroys itself. But the destruction effect only comes for when that card is destroyed. So when you detach from an XYZ monster, that card isn't coming from field because it's no longer in play. And then a lot of your Bujins, like anything you're trying to get stuff engraved, it goes straight from hand to graveyard, so it never touches field. So there is some player transgression with how you play this card, but in this deck I feel it's really solid. It slows down your enemies, and it keeps the field manageable and easier to protect Yamato. On to my extra deck. This deck, as I said, you don't special summon a lot, so a lot of this is just cards that you might go into. They're good in this deck when you go into them, but most of the time you really don't. One copy of Utopia. Not really many other rank 4s I could think of that would work well. One copy of Constellar Omega. Protects himself and he goes into the next XYZ monster. It gives you access to him. Is Constellar Ptolemy M7. It's a really good card. It's almost no reason if you can if you can put him in the deck why you wouldn't. So yeah. This one's actually new. It came out in Judgment of Light. Number 102, Star Seraph Century. He's a pretty good card. I haven't gone into him yet, but he's a 2500 beater. Requires 3 level 4 light monsters. When he would be destroyed, you can detach an XYZ material to save him. And his other effects is target one face-up monster your opponent controls, detach material, reduce its attack to 0, and negate its effect. So he's good in that aspect. Shockmaster, haven't even gone into him. I'll separate these. The XYZ monsters I have played in this deck, and the XYZ monsters I haven't actually played in this deck. So out of my extra deck of 15, I've played a grand total of 5 of them. But to continue on, 1 Brotherhood of the Firefist Tiger King. Since you do run Beast Warriors, he's a good way to search out your tanky. Pretty much all your monsters are light. 1 Starleech Paladynamo, and then 1 Abyss Dweller because he's a good generic rank 4. Now the monsters I've actually went into this deck. 1 Gaga Cowboy. Cowboy is he's a good card. I've used him like 3 or 4 times just for that last 800 burn damage to go for game. Maestroke I've used to just set opponent's monsters to get around them. Number 44 Sky Pegasus. I've actually got him to twice. He's won me a couple games. Just because his effect you detach, you can destroy your opponent's monster, or they pay 1,000 life points to negate it. Well, usually late game when you go into him, it's like detach. Either you're going to pay the 1,000 and kill yourself, or you're going to let the monster die, and I'm going to hit you direct for game. So I think he's pretty good. I wouldn't run him more than 1. And then the other Beast Warrior of the archetype that is God, quite literally in Japanese lore, Susano is a god, is Bujin Deck Susano. I want to do rarity upgrades on these, get the ultimate rares. If anyone has them, shoot me a message. I definitely want to trade for those. So yeah, but what Susano does is he has Yamato's effect when he detaches. You detach, you search a Bujin, or you detach and you send a Bujin from deck to grave. So he is jack of all trades, I guess you can say. And not only that, he can attack each of your opponent's face-up monsters once per this battle phase. So, like I said earlier, he combos really well with this card, Horn of the Phantom Beast. Because, so, it's like, okay, XYZ out for Susano. Susano's on the field. I'm going to hit him with Horn of the Phantom Beast. Attack, attack, attack. He attacked 3 times. I cleared my opponent's field. I got 3 cards, and then all my other monsters are free to attack my opponent directly. So I like that combo. It's the main reason I have Horn at 2, and I even considered running it, is because of Susano. Okay, and then, so that's it for my extra deck. Next is my side deck. I was actually really happy. I got to finish this weekend. I still have one slot open. If anyone has any suggestions for what I should put in that one slot, let me know. To start things off, the only monsters in the side deck are 2 Droll and Lockbird for spellbook matchups, 2 MST for black back row clearance. I only run 1. And then for like those really heavy trap decks or chain burn, I found this card works really well. Is 2 traps done. It's a really good card. I prefer it over Royal Decree just because it's at my transgression and choice of when to hit it for its most potential effect. Double Shadow Imprisoning Mirror for the Dark World matchup. Yeah, it hurts Evil Swarms a little bit, but it's mainly just to stop a Dark World deck. Because when you've got this, Vanity's Emptiness, and Solemn Judgment on the field, like at my locals, when I tossed this deck together, I went 4-0. But in the Dark World matchup, I sided both these, my trap stuns, and so pretty much I had a Shadow Imprisoning Mirror set, a Vanity's Emptiness set, and my Solemn Judgment set. And it was game 3. My opponent was completely shut down. He had no answers, so yeah, it was a really good game for me. Then next up, double Gozen match. This card was mainly for the E-Dragon matchup, but I have a feeling that since how well that deck did at Worlds, it's going to get the crap knocked out of it. So yeah, anyone who knows, that deck is just broken. Then double Mind Crush. I play it for spellbook matchups. So like if they have a secrets in hand, I'll hit Mind Crush, call secrets. Hopefully it's there. If not, I can just drop a Bujin monster like Quill and our Turtle to grave. And then next up is double Soul Drain. I've been debating taking this trap out just because a lot of my effects resolve in the graveyard and are banished zone. But I feel that if I play it right, just save it until it's really to the point where I can't do anything and I need it to stop my opponent, I can do it. So yeah. So that is my Bujin deck, guys. Honestly, I think this coming format after the ban list, if any of you saw that little leak that Konami had on their site after the championship, I definitely think this deck is going to be really good this coming format. I definitely am going to try to do a ban list talk coming up here and maybe see if I can find an image of that leak that Konami had. So that's it for now. You guys take care, and I'm out.